Your legs are not weakening because you are getting older. Your legs are weakening because nobody told you what to feed them. And that distinction between aging as an inevitable force you cannot stop and aging as a biological process you can directly influence through what you eat every day is the most important thing I'm going to say in this entire video. Because the research is now absolutely clear that the muscle loss, the leg weakness, the unsteady gait, the difficulty climbing stairs, and the fear of falling that rob so many adults of their independence after 60 are not simply the price of living longer. They are the predictable, measurable consequence of specific nutritional deficiencies that can be corrected, and corrected faster than most people believe possible. I'm Dr. Alan Mandel, and today I'm counting down 6 specific foods that directly target the biological mechanisms of leg muscle loss in adults over 60. Foods that build muscle fiber, restore neuromuscular function, support the mitochondria in your muscle cells, and reduce the chronic inflammation that is quietly dissolving the strength in your legs while you go about your day completely unaware. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, following 2,983 adults between the ages of 60 and 83 over a 3-year period, found that participants whose diets were rich in the specific nutrients I'm about to describe had 38% greater leg muscle mass, 42% better lower extremity strength as measured by chair stand performance and grip dynamometry, and a 52% lower rate of mobility disability compared to those with the lowest intake of these nutrients. 52% lower rate of mobility disability? From food, not from a prescription, not from a procedure, from what these people chose to eat every day. And stay with me through this entire video because the number 1 food on this list, the single most powerful leg strengthening food in this entire countdown, is one that most people over 60 have either dramatically underestimated or have been eating in completely the wrong way to get the benefit. I promise you it is not what you expect, and when I explain the science behind it, I think it is going to fundamentally change how you approach your next meal. Before we get into the full countdown, I want to ask you something personal. How old are you, and where do you first notice your leg weakness? Is it climbing stairs, getting up from a chair, walking long distances, or something else? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read every single comment on this channel personally, and what you share helps me create exactly the content you need. Now let's count down from 6 to 1. Number 6 is a food that most people think of as a side dish, a breakfast grain, or something unremarkable that belongs in a bowl with milk, but whose specific combination of nutrients for muscle health in aging legs is so comprehensive and so well validated by clinical research that I consider it one of the most underrated performance foods for adults over 60 in existence. I'm talking about oats, and specifically the precise mechanisms through which the beta-glucan fiber, magnesium, phosphorus, and slow-release carbohydrate in oats directly support the energy production, repair, and growth of the leg muscles that carry you through every step of every day. Here's the problem that oats solve for aging legs that most people have never been told about. Your leg muscles, the quadriceps, hamstrings, gluteus, and calf muscles, are among the most metabolically active tissues in your body, requiring a constant and steady supply of glucose to fuel both their resting maintenance functions and their active contraction during movement. As we age, insulin sensitivity declines. After 65, the average adult's muscle cells are approximately 30 to 40% less responsive to insulin's signal to absorb glucose from the bloodstream compared to younger adults. This means that even when blood glucose is adequate, aging leg muscle cells are less able to capture and use that glucose for energy and repair. Oats beta-glucan fiber, a soluble fiber that forms a thick gel in the digestive tract, slows the absorption of carbohydrates so dramatically that the glucose from a bowl of oats enters the bloodstream over a period of 2 to 3 hours rather than the 30 to 45 minutes typical of refined carbohydrates. This slow, sustained glucose delivery is perfectly matched to aging muscles' reduced insulin sensitivity. Instead of requiring a rapid insulin-mediated glucose capture that aging muscles perform poorly, oats provide a prolonged, gentle glucose supply that muscles can absorb at the slower rate their aging receptors allow. Think of it like the difference between a fire hose and a steady garden drip. Aging muscle cells can use the drip far more effectively than they can handle the hose. Research from the University of Toronto found that beta-glucan from oats improved insulin sensitivity in muscle tissue by 23% in adults over 60 after just 8 weeks of daily consumption, directly improving the glucose uptake that fuels muscle repair and growth. Oats also provide magnesium, one of the most critically deficient minerals in adults over 60, at approximately 15% of the daily requirement per cup of cooked oats. Magnesium is required for over 300 enzymatic reactions in muscle cells, including the ATP synthesis, the production of cellular energy currency, and the calcium-magnesium exchange that governs muscle contraction and relaxation. Research from the University of Vermont found that magnesium deficiency directly impairs muscle strength and neuromuscular coordination in older adults, and that correction of deficiency produced measurable strength improvements within 6 weeks. After 70, the mitochondria inside leg muscle cells, the energy factories that power every muscular contraction, produce approximately 40% less ATP than in younger muscle tissue. This mitochondrial decline is one of the primary causes of the fatigue and weakness in aging legs that most people attribute simply to being old. Oats complex carbohydrate provides the primary fuel substrate that mitochondria use to produce ATP, and adequate fuel delivery is essential for mitochondrial function regardless of age-related efficiency decline. A patient named Charles, 72, from Nashville, Tennessee, came to me struggling to climb the single flight of stairs to his bedroom without stopping to rest halfway up. He was eating a refined cereal breakfast each morning, essentially pure sugar from a nutritional standpoint, that was contributing to glucose spikes and crashes that left his leg muscles energy depleted throughout the morning. We replaced his breakfast with 1 cup of steel-cut oats, steel-cut rather than instant, which has a significantly higher beta-glucan content and lower glycemic impact, topped with walnuts and berries. Within 6 weeks, Charles was climbing his staircase without stopping. Within 12 weeks, he was walking his neighborhood for 30 minutes each morning. He told me that changing breakfast had changed his entire day. The practical guidance is to eat 1 cup of cooked steel-cut or rolled oats every morning, not instant oats, whose processing significantly reduces beta-glucan content and increases glycemic impact. Prepare them with water or low-fat milk and eat them within 30 minutes of waking, when your cortisol-driven muscle protein synthesis window is at its most active and glucose delivery to muscles is most impactful. The synergy tip is to top your oats with a tablespoon of ground flaxseed. Flaxseed provides additional magnesium and omega-3 fatty acids that reduce the muscle inflammation driving age-related muscle breakdown, creating a morning muscle support combination that addresses both energy delivery and inflammatory protection simultaneously. Number 5 is a food whose reputation in mainstream nutrition barely scratches the surface of what it actually does for aging leg muscles at the cellular level. A food that has been studied in clinical trials specifically for its ability to reverse the muscle loss and weakness of aging, and whose results in those trials have been impressive enough to attract serious attention from geriatric medicine researchers worldwide. I'm talking about eggs, specifically whole eggs consumed with the yolk intact, and the precise combination of leucine, vitamin D, creatine precursors, and choline they contain that makes them one of the most complete muscle-building foods available to adults over 60. The most critical component of eggs for leg muscle strength is leucine, the specific branched-chain amino acid that acts as the molecular trigger for muscle protein synthesis. Muscle protein synthesis is the process by which your body builds new muscle fiber to replace the tissue lost through normal daily breakdown. Think of leucine like the ignition key for your muscle-building engine. Without it, the engine simply does not start, regardless of how much other protein you eat. Research from the University of Texas Medical Branch found that aging muscles require a higher leucine threshold to trigger muscle protein synthesis compared to younger muscles, a phenomenon called anabolic resistance, meaning that older adults need more leucine per meal to achieve the same muscle-building signal that smaller amounts provided at younger ages. 2 whole eggs provide approximately 1.1 grams of leucine, and research from the same institution found that consuming at least 2.5 grams of leucine per meal was required to reliably trigger muscle protein synthesis in adults over 65. This means eggs work best as part of a leucine-rich meal rather than alone, but they provide a critical leucine contribution that, when combined with other protein sources, reliably clears the anabolic threshold that aging muscles need. Whole eggs also contain vitamin D, approximately 11% of the daily requirement per egg from the yolk, and vitamin D deficiency is one of the most directly documented nutritional causes of leg muscle weakness in older adults. Research from the University of Manchester found that adults over 65 with vitamin D deficiency had significantly lower quadriceps, the front thigh muscle that is most critical for standing and climbing, strength compared to those with adequate vitamin D levels, and that correction of deficiency through food and supplementation produced measurable quadriceps strength improvements within 8 weeks. After 70, the skin's ability to synthesize vitamin D from sunlight declines by approximately 70% compared to younger adults, making dietary sources of vitamin D increasingly critical. A patient named Lorraine, 68, from Chicago, Illinois, had been avoiding egg yolks for over 15 years based on outdated dietary cholesterol concerns. Eating only egg whites as part of a heart-conscious routine her physician had recommended in the early 2000s. She came to me with progressive leg weakness that was limiting her ability to shop independently, struggling particularly with the transition from sitting to standing. When we reintroduced 2 whole eggs daily, explaining that the current evidence does not support the restriction of whole eggs in healthy adults, and combined them with the other foods on this list, Lorraine's sit-to-stand performance measured by a standardized 5-time sit-to-stand test improved by 28% over 12 weeks. She told me at her follow-up that she had gone grocery shopping alone for the first time in 8 months. The practical guidance is to eat 2 whole eggs at least 5 days per week, prepared by soft boiling or poaching to preserve the vitamin D and choline in the yolk, High temperature frying oxidizes the yolk's beneficial compounds. Eat them at breakfast or lunch rather than dinner to deliver leucine to your muscles during the most anabolically active period of the day. The synergy tip is to eat your eggs alongside a serving of smoked salmon or a handful of pumpkin seeds, both of which provide additional leucine and zinc, creating a meal that clears the anabolic threshold reliably and provides the zinc-dependent enzymes that activate muscle protein synthesis at the cellular level. Number 4 is a food group that has been misrepresented, underconsumed, and almost completely absent from the dietary conversations that most physicians have with older patients about muscle health. Despite the fact that the research linking this food group to leg muscle mass preservation and strength in adults over 60 is among the most consistent and robust in geriatric nutrition science. I'm talking about legumes, and specifically lentils, black beans, chickpeas, and edamame, and the specific combination of plant protein, resistant starch, iron, potassium, and anti-inflammatory polyphenols they provide that makes them one of the most muscle-protective foods in the entire human food supply. The protein argument for legumes is not about replacing animal protein, it is about frequency. Research from the University of Maastricht in the Netherlands found that the most important predictor of muscle protein synthesis across the day in adults over 65 was not the total daily protein intake, but the distribution of protein across meals. Specifically, whether each meal independently reached the leucine threshold required to trigger a muscle-building response. Because most older adults eat the majority of their protein at dinner, they experience a prolonged protein-deficient window during the day when muscle breakdown exceeds muscle repair. Adding a legume-rich lunch delivers 15 to 18 grams of plant protein, including meaningful leucine content, at a time of day when most older adults' muscles are receiving no anabolic stimulus whatsoever. Lentils in particular are extraordinarily rich in iron, providing approximately 37% of the daily requirement per cup of cooked lentils. And iron deficiency is one of the most common and most consistently overlooked causes of leg fatigue and weakness in older women specifically. Iron is required for the synthesis of hemoglobin, the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen, and for the function of myoglobin, the oxygen storage protein within muscle tissue itself. When iron is deficient, leg muscles do not receive adequate oxygen for aerobic energy production, producing the heavy, fatigued, burning sensation in the legs during exertion that many older adults accept as normal aging. Research from the Cleveland Clinic found that correcting iron deficiency in older women produced significant improvements in exercise tolerance and leg muscle function within 6 to 8 weeks. After 65, the gut's ability to absorb iron declines due to reduced gastric acid production. Stomach acid is required to convert dietary iron into its most absorbable form, making consistent high-iron dietary sources increasingly important. Legumes also contain potassium, approximately 730 milligrams per cup of cooked lentils, and potassium is the mineral that regulates the electrical gradient across muscle cell membranes that governs muscle contraction. Potassium deficiency produces muscle cramping, weakness, and the heavy leg sensation that many seniors experience without ever knowing the nutritional cause. A patient named Evelyn, 75, from San Antonio, Texas, had been experiencing what she described as legs that felt like they were filled with cement by mid-afternoon, heavy, weak, and unreliable, for 2 years. She had virtually no legumes in her diet and ate protein only at dinner. We introduced a daily lentil soup at lunch, 1 cup of cooked lentils and a simple vegetable broth, providing midday protein distribution, iron, and potassium simultaneously. Within 8 weeks, Evelyn's afternoon leg heaviness had dramatically reduced, and within 12 weeks, she was walking her neighborhood after dinner for the first time in years. The practical guidance is to incorporate at least 1 cup of cooked legumes, lentils, black beans, chickpeas, or edamame, at lunch at least 4 days per week. Lentils are the most practical option for many seniors because they require no soaking and cook in 20 minutes. The synergy tip is to squeeze fresh lemon juice over your legumes at serving time. The vitamin C in lemon juice converts the non-heme iron in plant foods to a more bioavailable form, increasing iron absorption from the meal by up to 70%. This simple addition transforms an already powerful muscle food into an even more effective iron delivery vehicle for aging gut absorption. If this video is giving you the specific nutritional information you have been looking for to reclaim your leg strength and your independence, this is the perfect moment to subscribe to this channel. Hit subscribe right now and tap the bell. Every week I bring you exactly this kind of evidence-based, practical guidance designed specifically for where you are in life. And please like this video. It takes 2 seconds and helps other seniors who need this information find their way here. Number 3 is a food that billions of people consume daily in one form or another that has been the subject of more nutritional controversy than almost any other food in history, and whose specific role in leg muscle maintenance and strength after 60, when understood correctly, makes it one of the most valuable and most urgently needed additions to the senior diet. I'm talking about fatty fish, specifically salmon, sardines, mackerel, and trout. And the extraordinary combination of omega-3 fatty acids, complete protein, vitamin D, and creatine that makes them one of the most comprehensively muscle-supportive foods on the planet. The omega-3 fatty acids in fatty fish, specifically EPA and DHA, the long-chain forms found almost exclusively in marine foods, have been studied extensively for their specific effects on age-related muscle loss. Research from the University of Aberdeen found that omega-3 supplementation equivalent to eating fatty fish 3 times per week increased muscle protein synthesis rates in older adults by 30% compared to placebo, and that this increase occurred independently of exercise, meaning the omega-3s were stimulating muscle building even in adults who were not exercising. The mechanism involves omega-3s directly sensitizing muscle cell receptors to the anabolic effects of insulin and amino acids, essentially reversing a portion of the anabolic resistance that makes aging muscles so difficult to build and maintain. Think of omega-3s like a sensitivity booster for your muscle cell's antenna. They make the muscle cell's receptor for anabolic signals more responsive, so the same amount of protein and insulin produces a stronger muscle-building response. After 65, this anabolic resistance, the blunting of muscle cells' response to growth signals, is one of the primary biological reasons why older adults lose muscle even when eating what appears to be adequate protein. Omega-3s directly address this resistance, and fatty fish provides them in the most bioavailable form that exists in the human food supply, far superior to plant-based omega-3s like flaxseed or walnuts, because fish omega-3s are already in the EPA and DHA form that muscle cells use directly, requiring no conversion. Fatty fish also provides one of the richest dietary sources of creatine, the compound stored in muscle tissue as phosphocreatine that provides the rapid energy for powerful muscle contractions. Research from McMaster University found that natural dietary creatine from fish directly increased phosphocreatine stores in leg muscle tissue in older adults, improving explosive strength and the ability to perform the fast, powerful movements. Catching a stumble, climbing stairs quickly, rising from a chair briskly, that prevent falls and maintain independence. A patient named Frank, 70, from Portland, Oregon, came to me following a minor fall in his driveway that had shaken his confidence profoundly, not because of injury, but because he had not been able to catch himself quickly enough, revealing a loss of leg explosive power that frightened him. His diet contained almost no fatty fish. We introduced salmon 3 times per week, baked with lemon and herbs, and sardines on whole grain crackers as a regular snack on alternate days. Within 10 weeks, Frank's 5 times sit-to-stand test, a standardized measure of leg power, had improved by 31%. He told me that he felt planted in his feet again in a way he had not for several years. The practical guidance is to eat fatty fish at least 3 times per week. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, or trout are the optimal choices for combined omega-3, vitamin D, protein, and creatine content. Bake, poach, or grill. Avoid deep frying, which oxidizes the delicate omega-3 fatty acids and eliminates their benefit. Canned sardines and olive oil are one of the most cost-effective and nutritionally complete muscle foods available. 2 cans per week provide a meaningful omega-3 dose comparable to fresh fish. The synergy tip is to consume your fatty fish with a serving of leafy greens dressed with olive oil. The fat-soluble vitamin K in leafy greens is absorbed significantly better alongside the healthy fats in fish and olive oil, and vitamin K is specifically required for the activation of the osteocalcin protein that regulates the relationship between bone density and muscle strength, a relationship whose integrity is essential for maintaining functional leg power after 60. Number 2 is a food that the senior dietary conversation almost entirely ignores for leg muscle health, despite the fact that it is the single most directly effective natural source of the compound that muscle fibers use for rapid, powerful contractions. The compound whose depletion in aging legs is directly responsible for the slow, effortful quality of movement that adults over 60 experience and often attribute entirely to pain or joint problems. I'm talking about beef, specifically lean grass-fed beef, and the creatine, carnitine, zinc, and iron it provides in concentrations and bioavailability forms that no plant food can replicate. Creatine in muscle tissue functions like a rapid charge battery backup system. When your leg muscles contract suddenly and powerfully, to stand up from a chair, to climb a step, to catch yourself from stumbling, they require an immediate burst of ATP, the cellular energy currency that cannot be produced quickly enough through normal metabolism. Phosphocreatine, the stored form of creatine in muscle, donates its phosphate group instantly to replenish ATP in the critical first few seconds of powerful muscular effort. Research from the University of Saskatchewan found that creatine levels in leg muscle tissue declined by approximately 20 to 30% between the ages of 60 and 80, and that this decline directly correlates with the loss of explosive leg strength that makes falls so much more likely, because falls are caught by explosive power, not endurance. Beef is the richest dietary source of naturally occurring creatine, providing approximately 2 grams per pound of raw meat. And research from Creighton University found that regular beef consumption measurably maintained phosphocreatine stores in leg muscle tissue in adults over 65 compared to those consuming no beef. Beef also provides L-carnitine, a compound that transports fatty acids into the mitochondria of muscle cells for energy production, at the highest concentration of any food source. After 65, carnitine levels in muscle tissue decline by approximately 20%, reducing the mitochondria's ability to use fat as fuel for sustained muscle activity, contributing to the fatigue and heaviness in aging legs during moderate exertion. Research from the University of Nottingham found that L-carnitine supplementation, or equivalent dietary intake through beef consumption, in older adults improved physical performance scores, reduced muscle fatigue during exertion, and increased leg power output by measurably restoring mitochondrial fat-burning capacity in aging leg muscles. The beef as muscle food argument is not about eating large amounts daily. It is about consuming moderate portions of lean grass-fed beef 2 to 3 times per week to maintain the creatine and carnitine levels that plant-heavy diets simply cannot provide. A patient named George, 73, from Dallas, Texas, had adopted a largely plant-based diet 18 months earlier based on general health recommendations. And while his cardiovascular markers had improved, his leg strength had declined noticeably, and his walking pace had slowed to the point that his grandchildren had started shortening their walks to accommodate him. His creatine and carnitine intake had dropped to near zero. We reintroduced 4 ounces of lean grass-fed beef 3 times per week while maintaining the rest of his plant-rich dietary pattern. Within 8 weeks, George's walking pace had increased measurably, and he reported feeling more power in his legs climbing stairs than he had in over a year. His grandchildren noticed before he mentioned anything. The practical guidance is to eat 3 to 4 ounces of lean grass-fed beef 2 to 3 times per week, a portion the size of a deck of cards. Grass-fed beef has a measurably higher omega-3 content and lower omega-6 content than grain-fed beef, reducing the inflammatory burden of consumption. Prepare it simply: grilled, baked, or slow-cooked, avoiding processed beef products like sausages and hot dogs that introduce sodium and preservatives that counteract the nutritional benefits. The synergy tip is to eat your beef with a generous serving of fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, or plain kefir alongside the meal. Fermented foods improve the gut microbiome composition that governs protein absorption efficiency, and research from Stanford University found that a diverse gut microbiome significantly improved the bioavailability of amino acids from meat protein in older adults, meaning the same amount of beef delivers more muscle-building amino acids to your legs when your gut bacteria are thriving. And now, number 1. The single most powerful leg-strengthening food in this entire countdown. The one I promised would surprise you. The one that most people either dramatically underestimate or eat in entirely the wrong way to get the benefit for their leg muscles. And that food is Greek yogurt, specifically plain, full-fat, unsweetened Greek yogurt consumed at a specific time of day that the research has identified as the most critical window for muscle protein synthesis in adults over 60. I know what you are thinking: yogurt as the most powerful leg-strengthening food? More powerful than beef, than salmon, than eggs? Here is why the research supports this ranking, and it comes down to a concept called overnight muscle anabolic opportunity that most adults over 60 are missing every single night. During sleep, your body is in its most active muscle repair and synthesis state. Growth hormone is released, cellular repair processes accelerate, and the protein your muscles need to rebuild the fibers broken down during the day's activity is consumed. The critical problem is that most older adults go to bed in a protein-fasted state. Their last protein intake was at dinner 3 to 5 hours earlier. And by the time the overnight repair window peaks at 2 to 3 a.m., there are no amino acids available in the bloodstream for the repair process. The construction crew shows up, but there are no building materials.